Oh, yeah. So tell me that joke.
Oh yeah. So and this is not me, right? This is regurgitation, right?
Yes.
So that there was this guy that was invited to church, and he this first time he had heard about Jesus and what the devil does, and he was really bought in, man. And then he came home and he was bummed. He told his wife, he said, "I got kicked out of church for saying fuck the devil." He says, "What the fuck? I thought we hated that motherfucker."
Oh, that's classic.
It's just raw, man. I mean, people, I've seen another video in the Instagram. This is what's fun about that is that, this guy was getting baptized and the pastor asked him, he said, "Where are you getting baptized today?" He said, "Well, because I used to be a piece of shit."
Did he get cleaned up?
That's just raw, man. That's bringing someone into your story.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's uh that's a connection that you and I have over the course of years of being tied to faith and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, each have our own different perspectives on it at this point, just because of life and that type of thing. And being in church, I don't I don't go much anymore to church, and it's unless it's a funeral or a wedding. Um,
Right.
but I know you still do. I know you still have that as part of your story, and we'll like to tap into that at different points in time.
Yeah.
But just for the guest, Tom Powell, welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you taking some time today and being able to share your story with the world and with me. Um,
Absolutely. Well, and I also say, man, how proud I am of you. So when I think about Rich Wright, all I think about is being across campus going Rich as loud as I possibly can,
exactly. And
and
me
you
trying
wanting
to
to hide
hide as
under a stone.
exactly trying to hide as fast as possible so nobody see who was going on. I was so scared during that time, bro. Oh my God, I was afraid of everything.
Right.
Afraid of everything. Um, but let me give the audience a little intro here for you. Give some background on who we're talking to. So, Tom Powell, you are a designer, father, entrepreneur, coach, and author, songwriter, and you even ran for mayor in 2008. You are the president and founder of the Addison Group, which is a full service marketing advertising firm offering services such as branding, website development, and digital marketing. You're the co-founder of Genie Jar Digital, along with Brian Forrester. You guys founded this digital marketing agency based in Williamsburg, Virginia, specializing in services like search engine optimization, online advertising, and social media management. You have over 30 years of marketing experience. You launched your first marketing agency in 1996, nearly 3 decades ago, and have since garnered numerous awards, including recognition um, in Inside Business's Top 40 Under 40, Top 15 Under 50, Best Ad Agency in Coastal Virginia, Small Business of the Year, Rising 25 in Hampton Roads, multiple awards, including numerous Addies, Tellys, Summit MEA, and Summit Creative. Um, you studied communication as a major at Pensacola Christian College, equipping you with a solid foundation for your marketing career. Your community engagement, which is I don't know how you fit all this stuff into your time, but you're actively involved in the community. You're the past president and current area governor of the Rotary. You spent time teaching monthly marketing classes. That's current. You're spending that time currently
Right.
with Old Dominion University, aimed at assisting veterans, the VBOC, and starting businesses. You also teach at William and Mary's Mason School for Business, aimed at entrepreneurs both in college and young professionals. And you serve on the board of visitors for the Chowan University, and on the marketing board of VSGA, which is the Virginia State Golf Association. You're an advocate for clear marketing. You emphasize the importance of clarity in marketing messages, advertising business to prioritize clear communication over cleverness to effectively reach their audience. So you want to bring someone into your story. That's your continuous message to them through that. Jesus, bro. The That's a novel in and of itself.
Actually, what I did is I went to Chat GTP and told them my name and what I love to do, and they spit that whole list out for me. So that's
Oh, that's fantastic. I don't I don't think you did that because I already know most of that story. Um, but yeah, you're a busy dude. Always got something going on in and around Virginia, Hampton Roads area, Virginia Beach. Um, and I appreciate you just taking the time to get on here with me, share your story, share some ups and downs with the world and the creative community, um, so that they understand fully and completely that they're not alone. There's always somebody out there who has potentially a similar story or even a different angle on a story, that will allow them to, be able to connect and experience those types of things, through the story. So where I'd like to start off at, even though I know, but we want the world to know, so I'm going to ask the question as if I don't know. But where'd you grow up, and what was life like in your elementary years?
man, that's a fully loaded question.
Of course.
And because I do so much, I don't have time to answer that. So let's go to the next question, bro. I'm just teasing, man. Now, I was born in Richmond, Virginia. My father was a pastor, and I grew up in a pastor's home, and so my whole life has been around the church, being involved in church. He was a Southern Baptist pastor, so that's more of a, a cultish type. It seems like today,
Yeah.
where you've got this set of guidelines and rules, and here you go, and that's how I grew up. I don't hate it though. Part of me can really just go, you know what? I missed a lot. I had to do some things, not really me. I had to do what my parents wanted me to do. I could never, figure out my own convictions or my own salvation. So, part of me, kind of leans to that. And I think that's a negative voices inside my head doing that. And so in my years of looking back on that, and being involved in so many positive things, I look at it as the fact that, my dad and mom and my family really invested in me, to teach me things like character, integrity, be honest, work hard, do what you say,
Right.
do everything you can. One of my favorite verses in the Bible, it says, if there's something you can do and you don't do it for someone, it's sin. And so I've kind of lived my life like that. Sometimes that backfires on me because I get involved in too much.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and as of late, I've been able to really restructure that stuff. You read off this whole list of things, and really what I get from that is that I'm not busy. It's just that, oh my God, I'm old as dirt. I've done a lot of stuff. There's a lot of
Right.
checklist things going on there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was born in Richmond. I was born in Richmond, and then my dad moved to. He was a history major at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. I don't know
Right.
how he got to being a pastor, but he was. So we moved here to Suffolk, Virginia, which is in the Hampton Roads area, and I never left. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Married a girl from Detroit, brought her here. We have 4 kids. Built an agency. And I'm sure we'll discuss this, but I did that ready, aim, not ready, fire, aim on, oh, I'm good at this. I'm creative. I think I'll start a company. That's only 5% of starting a company. There's so much
Yeah.
that I've really learned over the years just from School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Uh, that's where I was born, raised in a Christian home, raised in a pastor's home. Spent my years trying to convince my friends that I know my dad's a pastor, but I'm just as cool, if not cooler than you. So I had to overdo things.
Yeah.
That's where that stuff came from. Is just trying to fit in, trying to figure out, where I was instead of being my authentic self, trying to be something that I thought everybody else wanted me to be.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I want to dive into that a little bit more. So I want to pull you back a little bit to elementary school and like going into um going into kindergarten, first grade ish. Were you Did you at that time did you feel like creative? Did you draw a lot? Did you spend a lot of time creating things, or was it just at that point was it just a normal regular childhood?
No, I remember being creative. I remember being driven. As an Enneagram 3, I'm considered an achiever. And so I can look back as far as I can remember and always remember trying to be an achiever.
Yeah,
Uh, and Winnie and I were talking about this last night. We have this little game at the table, and so whoever's at the table eating dinner that night, we pull out these cards and ask questions. And one of the things was, "What was your favorite subject in school?" Well, I loved art. I loved shop, all creative stuff, but
yeah,
also spelling because I'm like, I know I can spell every word in the world. So I would really study words and do sight words and stuff like that. I also love math. I would go through that stuff to see not how much I could learn, but how fast I could do sight math and beat everybody else in the class.
right,
So, going back as early as I can remember, I was always artistic. I won't say creative because that's sort of developed. I was artistic, but I was driven also,
yeah, yeah,
even back, as far as first grade that I can remember.
right. Okay, that's that's interesting to pull that out. Because I've been able to see that across your whole lifetime that we've known each other, which has been since college. Um, but that driven element is definitely there. Um, and I've always seen that as well. So it's interesting that it was there starting off.
Oh, yeah.
Did you did you go through elementary school and were you one of the kids that was the cool kids, or did you just kind of blend in with everybody, or were you kind of the one who was quiet? Well, I can just throw that out the window. I assume you weren't the quiet one.
That's adorable. Thank you for including me in that.
Yeah.
Appreciate
But
it.
what was that like? What was that like?
Yeah, it was weird because again, my dad was a pastor. So I'd like to think I was one of the cool kids, but I think I was somewhere between the quiet kids and the cool kids. I was really trying extra. Uh Again, this came out last night at dinner is I spent a majority of my fourth, fifth, and sixth grade elementary school years outside of the classroom because the teacher had had enough with me. That's it, Tom. Go stand out in the hallway. So I got to learn a lot of other students in the school, middle school on up, because I was the guy outside. What are you in for? Well, I don't know, farted in class or said something I shouldn't have, or I did something stupid just to get somebody's attention, just to
Right.
make somebody laugh.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I spent a lot of my elementary years doing that. As a matter of fact, I've seen many of my elementary teachers since then, and they remembered me. And I'm like, how do you remember me out of all of the kids that you've taught? She said, well, usually the ones that stay in trouble are the ones we remember the most because we spend the most time with them.
Yeah.
The same with Dean Oman,
Right.
getting kicked out of high school and college.
Yeah.
Uh, those who I spent the most time with were the principals and the deans and stuff like that. And as an adult now that we've matured and I've figured out, okay, that's that part of my life is over. That's the relationships that I've been able to build and friendships, and we all laugh about it now.
Right.
Uh, that's uh, that's why I know so many of my former teachers and school people is because I've really kind of mischievously stayed in a little bit of trouble all the time.
Right. Right. Yeah, I can attest to that. For sure. Did were you into sports at all when you were young?
Yeah,
T-ball or any of
love
that stuff?
athletics. I started out third grade in Pee Wee football, so I had a football uniform, and we didn't do that flag stuff. We hit,
Okay.
and sixth graders would hit us, and that hurt. So was always athletic. I got that from really both my parents. My dad was a football star in high school.
All right.
Uh, Ended up playing some basketball in junior college afterwards. But always loved athletics. Played football from the time I was third grade on. Was the regional kick, pass, and punt champ my fifth, sixth, and seventh grade years. So
Nice.
that was another little thing. That wasn't a team effort. That's just individual effort. Kick, passing, and punting.
Yep.
Uh, so my dad taught me how to punt because he was a punter. he said, if you want to be an athlete, learn how to punt because you can go to National Football League and just walk on the field, punt, and collect money. That's all you do.
Right.
Uh, so play a lot of football. Then ended up on the basketball floor. Played a lot of basketball. I won several awards there, tournament MVPs, and defensive player of the year, offensive player of the year. So I got to do that. Never played baseball because it was just boring to me. And baseball's great. And it just was boring because unless you were the pitcher or the hitter, you're not doing anything but just standing there waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
So I only played that my senior year and ended up doing okay. Um, Never played soccer at all. Soccer wasn't really a thing. I mean, we called soccer players grass fairies out here.
Yeah.
It just wasn't around. If you're not tough enough to play football, you play soccer. What I didn't realize is that when I went to college and took it as a PE class, I thought, well, I'll just take it as PE and it'll be easy. I'm like, crap, this is football without pads. This is tough.
Exactly.
And so I
Exactly.
raised my three boys on a mixture of both. They were soccer, really state recognized champions, but they also two of my boys were recognized as kickers.
Yeah.
So I remember Trey is a ninth grader. Trey is my oldest son, second kid.
Yep.
Um, he was in the ninth grade, and the varsity football coach's wife saw him, said, "Hey, you should really try him out," because they were struggling on their field goal kicker for high
Mm.
school. Ended up going out. He never told me. I went out to the third game of the season. They scored a touchdown. He ran out on the field and kicked that extra point. I was like, what? 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 I didn't know. How did you? What? What? It was a really surprise. But then a love for that.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was good for him because he was able. They had a really good team that year. Ended up winning the state championship that year. And he probably set a record in high school. I don't know how much they were records, but we kept up with everything. He kicked almost 150 extra points in his high school career.
Wow.
Kicked a couple of field goals as well. Played some both sides of the ball. Um, so yeah, was able to pass that along only because I didn't play soccer and decided I would just get by and try soccer in college to get an easy A.
Yeah.
Uh, but it wasn't
Yeah. Yeah.
at all.
For sure. What's
Yeah.
interesting too is, seeing that achiever come out in that
Yep.
storyline right there, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
excelling in those sports, excelling in that arena as well, and delving into that. Um, Once you got into high school, um, was it kind of the same scenario? You just still continued on doing that, as far as athletics were concerned?
Yeah, I mean, I thought athletics were the deal in high school. So again, I played two sports, football and basketball. Didn't play baseball because it was just, I actually wrestled for a couple of years.
Okay.
And wrestled the 105 weight category. So now I think my leg weighs 105. I don't know how in the world I wrestled at 105, but that was fun. I was tall and lanky, and it was successful because I could leverage a pin
Yeah.
on shorter guys, stocky guys that weigh 105, but I could just spread legs and really and do well.
Yeah.
Never really got into it because I was never really a thick, tough athlete. I love to run. I love to do that stuff, which I see in my son Jack a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, high school was about athletics. I mean, that was really what I spent the most time doing.
Did you take art class and shop class in high school as well?
I did. I changed schools in the 10th grade, and that new school that we went to, a Christian school, didn't have shop class and didn't have art class, but we had a
Yeah.
competition every year called SACS, Southeastern Association of Christian Schools. And I remember the first time I came home, I said, "Hey, Dad, we got this big sax competition. We're going to Raleigh." And my dad was like, he thought I said sex. No, 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 sax. It's athletics, it's music, it's stuff like that. And
Right.
I would participate in music and participate in athletics and stuff like that, and in art, all the way down to when I became a senior that year. We really wanted our school to bring home the gold, right? So all these schools get together. It was 9 or 10 schools that got together, and people would get individual awards, but then it would take a cumulative of school and award the school the greatest. I guess the big winner, kind of like the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
America won more gold, so they're the champs. We did the same thing. And I remember as an artistic guy, I would do pencil drawings, paintings, whatever. But I entered into macrame because my
Okay.
art instructor said, "Hey, here's a category that nobody's doing anything." I said, "I'll do it, whatever. I'm the achiever, right? I'll do
Yeah,
it."
exactly.
I learned how to do macrame. I did this nice little macrame hang it thing that you hang a pot on.
Yeah.
We went to the competition, and I entered the thing, and I was the only one out of 9, 10 schools. I was like, oh, this is a cakewalk. When we get to the awards ceremony, they said, and third place, Tom Powell for macrame. I was like, third place. And then they went to the next thing. It was so bad they couldn't give me first place for this macrame that I did. And I thought, dude, I'm a dude, man.
And you're the only one in the
I
category?
should. I was the only one in the category, and I got third place out of one person.
Holy cow. That's wild.
And I don't even know where that thing is. I'd love to have it, tell you, but it got lost in a move or something like that.
Right, right. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So you're I'm saying that the creativity is still there. The achievers coming out big time because of the fact that you're literally jumping into doing something that most grandmothers are doing, not high school kids doing macrame. Um, but that's amazing to me. And also too, what's amazing to me is the fearlessness in being willing to jump into that category as well.
Yeah.
Um, the confidence to do that and to even just attempt it first and foremost,
Yeah.
then actually create something with it. There's an element of fearlessness there, of not being as afraid to create something,
Yeah.
even though it might be outside of the box of what everybody else thinks you can do.
Well, that was the easy part. The hard part was putting my name to it.
Right.
Macrame, Tom Powell.
Yeah.
All right. Why not?
Uh,
You only
yeah,
live once.
that's wild. That's wild. So, at what point in high school did you decide you were going to go off to college and potentially not go off to college to play sports,
Mhm.
but go off to college for something different?
Right.
What point in high school?
It's that's a great question, man. I never sports in college was never really on my radar. I never really thought about it. My parents never really pushed me to keep going. Even though when I went to college, I played all the club level, the basketball. I played volleyball. Ended up all starting that. I never played volleyball before, but we played so much on the beach that you
Right.
casted nice ups, and then when you get in the gym, you're like, woo.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember Jeff Ang. You remember Jeff
Oh
Ang?
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Rest in peace, brother. He was like, dude, you are skying over this net, man. You need to play in the gym. Ended up playing volleyball for a couple of years
Wow.
uh, at Pensacola. But I never looked at that thing. It's funny. I decided to go to Pensacola Christian College in the ninth grade because one of those groups came to my church and they painted this picture of here's a school. It's on the beach, and all I saw was beach. I'm like, "Phew, I'm going there.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I want to study something and then decide what school to go to then. I'm just going to go there because it's on the beach. And living near Virginia Beach made sense to me.
Right.
I'm used to that. I go there. That's why I chose the college, not because of what I wanted to do. Truth be known, I wanted to be an architect,
Okay.
which I've since been able to live a little bit of that with some building projects that I've worked on. But that's really what I wanted to do. And then I wanted to be a rock star. I
Hmm.
wanted to be Bon Jovi. So when I went to Pensacola, I saw what Ray and Ann Gibbs did. And I said, nah, there's no Bon Jovi here. I'm not doing that, man. So
Yeah.
change. I've changed a bunch before I ever hit the first class, and I ended up with communications with a graphic design. No, no, no. I'm sorry. Let me rewind. I was a commercial art major,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I studied. So for the first 2 years, with all the 6B and the pastels and the gouache, and this is all new stuff to me. I mean, I was used to pencil drawings and pen drawings and whatever,
Yeah.
a number. That was a transition I made to where I finally, our dear mutual friend Michael Petty was
Yeah.
the one that really, really helped me to cross over what art is and rich art is, as opposed to just a drawing.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And
And that's filling up with it.
that's kind of where our storyline starts to intersect, um, because I kind of had the same background in terms of having to go to Christian school. Started off in public school up to fourth grade. Was about to get. I was offered the ability to go into a program called Project Plus, which was for students who excelled in the creative arts and different things like that. So we'd have done a half day at elementary school and then gone to the high school, the local high school, to, be involved in art classes and learn different things like that in
Right.
the art classes. But my parents took me out of public school just because the church that they were attending started a private Christian school, um, which I hated everything about that. I hated it, even the fact that I was having to leave my friends that I had at the public school because I was always quiet from the beginning. So by the time I hit, fourth grade, I had finally got some friends who I was able to communicate with and talk to. And now I'm getting pulled out, got to go to this private school. I don't know hardly anybody that's going to be there. And I'm gonna have to start all over. And they didn't have any art programs whatsoever, nothing. So it was kind of a bizarre scenario, but my my introduction to Pensacola Christian was the fact that um, when I was on the sports teams throughout junior high and high school, the school was so small that I had to play with the seniors and the
Hmm.
juniors and all those guys. And so I learned pretty quickly on that I had to excel in that realm just because I had to compete against them. They were
Right.
much better than me, but I was able to, play with them, learn their skill sets, learn what their weaknesses were, and then be able to kind of uh, figure out how to beat them, even though they were older than me.
Right. Oh yeah.
But that was a good thing going into senior year because then, we went to a state championship in basketball and here in Michigan, and um, we didn't get very far because we were so small. But you know, being able to get up to that level when you're not even close to being a senior. But the two guys that were seniors when I was a sophomore, they ended up going down to Pensacola. It started Jim Thompson and Lonnie Farmer. Jim's actually still there. He's a CFO now of the college.
Oh.
Um, been there the entire time. So he was like, screw Michigan. I ain't never going back there. Um, but yeah, for me, that was kind of my scenario of going there. It was just because I knew people that were there. I also was looking at the beach scenario. I'm like, okay, cool. If I can get to the beach, be able to enjoy some of that sunshine, that'd be fantastic.
Mhm.
Um, and I decided, all right, I'm gonna go into graphic design. I think that might be the most versatile of their art programs that they had at that time. I didn't see myself doing the communication stuff or the marketing or any of those types of things. Felt that the graphic design was a little bit easier just because I knew how to draw and had always been able to draw. Um, and then once we got there, you and I ended up being in the drawing 101. That was the first class that I ever experienced, um, which was focused on crafting your drawing skills.
Right.
Um, and then we had Mr. Petty as the teacher for that course, um, which was, it was bizarre because we were like, what the heck are we doing here? And he was so staunch. I don't know if he ever did this to you, but he when we had those days where like your parents could come down. Was it just at the Turkey Bowl or was it other things?
No, they can come down any time, but during Thanksgiving it was Turkey Bowl and parents. I mean, the whole place was full of parents.
Yeah, yeah. So it was probably then, but he literally told my parents that I would never be anything more than a B student.
Really?
And that
That's
crushed me.
encouraging.
Yeah, that crushed me because they told me that and they're like, you're gonna have to try harder. And I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me right now? Like you're not even here. You don't understand what I'm doing.
All right.
You're just telling me to try harder because this guy says I'll never be more than a B student. And so next project was we had to draw a portrait of somebody. And that's where I did that Indian drawing. I did Wolf Robe, who is a American Indian chief, and he gave me an A minus. So I broke the B, but
Yeah,
A minus was all I got, and
right.
that I would never get. I never got anything more than that. I got one or two more A minuses, I think, but he was pretty staunch in terms of uh, not saying or trying to push me farther
Right.
in that skill set. Um,
I remember my first day in that class was the paper bag project. You remember that?
oh yeah, oh my God,
That
that
was
was
my first day.
crazy,
I was like, what?
right? I did the same thing. I'm like, wait a second, we got to draw a paper bag. Little did I realize the the purpose of it of being the values of shadow and how shadows
Right.
make something look three-dimensional. Like I don't remember him even explaining it that deep, but now years afterwards, I was able to look back at it and see that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and two, what was interesting for me was as much as you embarrassed the shit out of me by calling my name out from across the campus, you and I pretty much sat together
Yeah.
just about every time we had that class. What was it like for you being away from home, um, and being in that environment where you're having to meet new people, meet new friends, and create a community of uh, in a new environment like that?
Yeah. It didn't, other than just it being weird, there were, that was the first time I was really introduced to, brown nosing. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but
Oh yeah,
I'm
that's a right term for sure.
being so weird. I think the term I used at that time was nerd. Um, and you probably remember me saying nerd,
Yep, yep,
whatever. I couldn't express it because I was like, why? There was no authenticity and there was no be yourself.
yeah,
If you struggled, you got to hide that stuff, man.
yeah,
Only only when you're good should you show things. And that ended up being something I kind of struggled with, being an achiever,
yeah,
not letting people want to see the crap side or the C minuses and painting class or whatever. Only wanted to show my good side. That sort of promoted that environment sort of promoted that.
yep,
I think it's good for the driven part. It helps you to drive to want to succeed and do well. But what about the vulnerable side? What about the transparent side?
yep,
What about just me being me
right.
uh, side? And so it was kind of weird. It's probably why you and I connected because I felt a connection of somebody. Okay, this guy's real,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Uh, and so I ended up, almost going overboard and trying to find the real people to where I would be around a lot of troublemakers.
yeah,
Fortunately, I didn't get in too much trouble, but I found myself sort of bouncing around, sort of thinking all of the excess stuff, student council, all that. It was kind of corny.
right.
And so I would spend more time making fun of it than participating in it. So in where I came from in my state of being, that's really kind of what kind of laid the groundwork. And as a couple of years in, I got serious and it was college and I got better grades and stuff like that. But it's as you know, with Pensacola at that time, and I think it's changed a lot since then, but you're guilty until proven innocent. It's not the
Right.
other way around. So I always, from the time my freshman year was done, I was with a floor leader. I was near a lead. I was near something. They didn't let me and Tony Pezzatillo, you remember Tony?
Yeah, yeah,
They didn't let us room together because we were troublemakers,
yeah,
and they wanted to control the amount of trouble that came out. Which I don't know that really benefited because all the floor leaders they put me with ended up being pretty cool.
yeah,
I know what you like. It's cool. Just make sure you be careful, or if you're going to do something, don't tell me.
right. Yeah,
I ended up doing that. So I ended up sneaking around doing stuff. And during that chapter of my life, that's what I found out I had to do is if I wanted to be the authentic self, I had to keep it to myself.
right. Yeah,
Trust no
exactly.
one.
Yeah, and just to give the listeners a little bit of background in terms of what we're saying about the school and the college. It was a private Christian college. But the easiest way to address some of the similarities of the rules and regulations would be almost like going to military school,
Yep.
and being under those strict regiment of time frame, being at a certain place at a certain time, having to show up for everything at a certain time, dress code, all those types of things. And the weird component about it was the fact that it was like military school, but yet it was co-ed. So, you've got females going there as well. They had these rules that you couldn't be within 6 inches of a female. You couldn't stare at them for too long. Just, just some,
Challenge accepted.
yeah, stuff that just boggled my mind because I thought the Christian school that I was going to back home, I thought that was super strict. Now, my parents were never really, really strict about a whole lot of stuff when it came to that type of scenarios. I mean, my dad smoked cigarettes, so that wasn't something, the church would preach it on that, but we didn't look at it like it was something that was, you know, wrong with it. I didn't see it that way for sure. Um, but just different things like that. So it was super culture shock for me.
Yeah.
Um, was it similar for you as well from the Christian school that you were into in high school versus going there?
Not so much. I mean, it
Okay.
was the whole. I mean, when like I was in my dad's church, and he never said smoking was wrong, but he said smoking's not wrong, and it won't send you to hell, but it'll just make you smell like you've been there,
Right.
like
Okay.
I'm going to smell when
Yeah,
I
yeah,
leave the room now. Uh, that's kind of the whole thing. When I grew up, we didn't go to Busch Gardens because it was owned by Anheuser-Busch, and Anheuser-Busch sells beer. So if you go to Busch Gardens, you support alcoholism, and if you drink one drink, you're an alcoholic. And that's kind of how I grew up.
yeah,
And so everything I did was, hidden. I kept everything. I didn't have anyone that I trusted that I could say, hey, man, I kind of like to try beer, or I'd like to
yeah,
do something
yeah.
that is all. Because, when you tell somebody you shouldn't do this, you go, must be fun. How can we try to do it? I want to find out for myself.
Right. Right. Yeah. It was bizarre. It was definitely bizarre. The And then too, like you're saying, you got into some sports. I got into sports as well. I was playing soccer, and there it was just intramural type stuff. It was more club level style. Not at that point. Only the basketball team, I think,
Yeah.
was the only element of that school that played at a legitimate collegiate
Yeah.
level, and I want to say it might have been like D3 or lower.
Yeah. It was D3. And also they added, when we were still there, wrestling, because they
Okay.
had the Olympic wrestler that came and
Yeah.
covered. So they added that as well. But yeah, you're right. It was intramural.
Yeah. And so I was playing soccer because I had played soccer through high school and junior high, and then basketball. And I remember we played against you in basketball. Um, I don't even remember you playing against you. You didn't play on the soccer team, did you?
No, I didn't play soccer. Remember, I didn't grow up
Yeah,
playing soccer.
yeah,
But after I
yeah,
took the class, I was impressed, especially the day at Turkey Bowl when you got pummeled in the chest.
yeah.
You went down, dude. I've never
Oh yeah.
seen a guy hit so hard.
Yeah, that was a rocket shot, and I tried to catch it, but it slipped right through my gloves and it hit me square in the sternum, knocked the wind out of me. I was like,
For the
"Oh,
record, that was a goal save, by the way.
yeah, that was a
All the
goal
listeners out there.
save, goal save for sure." But yeah, I had never, and two, that's another scenario. Looking the difference between high school and college. High school, you're not experiencing shots like that. Once you get into college, now you're starting to deal with a whole lot different type of athlete.
Yeah,
And those
from
guys,
all over the country.
yeah, those guys were kicking ball like 70, 80 miles per hour.
Hmm.
So it was definitely eye opener. Fortunately for us, I got to we won the Turkey Bowl in my sophomore year. Won the championship in a shootout, and I had the final save in that shootout to for us to win, which it was interesting too because at that point I saw a shift in the dynamic of who was paying attention to who I was and everybody else who was like, oh, wow, wait, who is this guy? Kind of a
Yeah.
thing. Where I was trying to be a nobody, I was trying to be invisible the entire time because the rules that we had to follow, that scared the crap out of me. And, like you're saying, you ended up with the floor leaders and stuff because the dormitories were segregated to male versus female. Um, but so we only had guys in our dormitories,
Yeah.
and each floor had a floor leader, which was a person who was responsible for the hall, making sure everybody was not acting up, going to bed when lights out was on time, all that kind of stuff.
Show
But
up for hair check.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But with those groups of guys that you formed those friendships was with, did you find, even though you said some of them were a little bit of troublemakers, did you find that it was difficult to find a group that you knew consistently you didn't have to worry about stuff with?
Yep, had that small group in my major classes, like with you,
Yeah,
uh, and then with some of the classmates like Tony and John, which we still keep up today.
yeah.
Uh, Tony and John both are granddads now.
Oh
I
wow.
haven't gotten into that segment yet, but we've been able to watch their kids grow up, their marriages, all that stuff. So we've still connected. Those are the guys that we could be transparent around, which made that college experience at that time, particular time, for what it is, enjoyable for
Yeah,
me. Because I knew I could segment away and be myself.
yeah, for sure. For sure. And then too with that, like how much time did you spend at the beach versus in class?
Every moment I could. So I remember it was certainly second semester freshman year, but all through sophomore year and part of junior, we would go do two-man volleyball leagues almost every day, mostly on the weekend. And those weren't at Navarre or Fort Pickens or wherever we had to go to. Those were on the main beach, which to the listeners, we couldn't go there. We weren't supposed to go there.
Yeah,
So we had to, wear our long pants off campus, change when we got to the beach. So, and it was a whole thing. But every time I didn't have to work or be in class, I was at the beach. I mean, from January all the way, because January in Pensacola is, I mean, it's 75, chilly at night. The sun was still out. Water was kind of cold, but still, I just loved being at the beach. And it was not, and I was there by myself quite often. Studied some, played mostly, just hung out to get away from all the watchful eye of
right.
Big Brother.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And with with all of that strenuous restriction, stuff like that that's on us, did that play um did that play with your mental state at all at that point?
Uh, it probably didn't realize it then because I was
Okay.
just trying to navigate and get through. But as I look back on it, uh, trying to, once I had moved away from my parents, trying to develop my own convictions, I was confused between what's right and what's my conviction and what is a rule that I've just kept for a long time that I should I do it? I mean, it was a rule. Is it really wrong or right? Or did somebody just set up this rule? Because that was later on in life is when that really hit me as,
Yeah,
okay, I developed my own convictions. It was forced upon me from
right.
home, college. When I came home, I lived next door to my parents, got a piece of land, designed my own house, built my own house, but I was there. I never was locked away until I was around 33, 34 was the first time I was completely away from everything I'd ever known that was keeping me into a rules box.
Yeah.
So as a 33-year-old man was the first time I developed my own convictions as if I were 18 and got out of the house for the first time. But at that point, I was married with kids. So it was kind of a weird dynamic.
Right, for sure, for sure. And it I can tell from my perspective, it was very strenuous on my mindset. And I think that was the first, well, not really the first time, because I had some issues in high school in terms of depression and stuff like that. But that's where I really felt like um, things were starting to unravel for me
Right.
from a mental state. No, I mean, number one, just because I was scared to death all the time, thinking I'm going to do something wrong and end up getting kicked out. And I was having to pay for everything myself. Like my parents weren't helping me at all. So it was in my head, all right, if I get kicked out and I'm not finished a semester, I'm going to lose all that money that I just worked so hard for. So that in and of itself was one of the strenuous things for me. Then, like you saying, the rules and regulations of, is it wrong? Is it right? Or is somebody just telling me this? And for
Mhm.
me, a lot of it just felt I was being told I had to do this and I had to follow it this way just because they're saying so and they're the authority figures. So it was a bit difficult on my side of it, things in terms of um, starting to unravel mentally. And also, too, some of the guys that I was hanging out with who were in some of the other creative classes that you and I weren't in together as well, they were starting to have difficulties.
Oh yeah.
And I could see that in them and recognize it. And I'm like, holy crap, what's going on? Like, why are they having difficulty as well? And so it, it, as you look back, you can understand things better. But in that moment in time, you don't fully comprehend what's happening and what's going on.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so for me, I only I only went freshman, sophomore year, and then I sat out a semester because I didn't have enough money. And
Right.
then I came back in the spring session of what would should have been my junior year, but it ended up still being a sophomore year because I hadn't done enough credits um,
Right.
because I was failing everything except art.
Right.
So it was one of those types of scenarios. But you went on further than I did, and you had some little bit of issues in your junior senior areas, did you not?
Senior year for real, yeah. So one of the rules in the campus, as you had mentioned before, is you have to say, or you can't touch, you can't hold hands, you can't kiss, you can't obviously you can't be anywhere after after it gets dark with your girl. And so one time I was accused of sitting too close to my girlfriend in church, and I'm like, I was in church. Come on, Jesus is there too. If I had a problem, he would fix me, right? So I remember I brought up the discipline committee and I was guilty until proven innocent. I was like, well, I mean, is there a photo of it? No. I mean, it's just the floor leader's word against mine. And of course, I got socialed for 2 weeks, which means I can't talk to the opposite sex for 2 solid weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I was dating this one girl at that time, and when we liked each other, she was from my area, and we had this thing called Panhellenic, which means I can write a letter and she gets it the next day, right? So I drop it in the Panhellenic box, she gets it delivered that 10 o'clock that night. So we were working through something, we just got social and it was kind of weird, and we were trying to maintain a relationship. And I was like, this is just stupid. I just need to talk to her for a few minutes. We get it straight and then we move on. Well, I knew where she was off campus. So I went to where she was off campus. I said, hey, we were, as a matter of fact, on the fence, never touched her, never hugged her, never did anything. I just said, hey, can we talk about this? And we talked maybe 10, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Uh, apparently she had gone home. She called her parents or whatever. And how's things going? Well, Tom and I had a chance to talk through some things. Overheard someone told on us, remember, guilty until proven innocent. So we were accused of going off campus and we should have been. And that's when I got kicked out of school. That
Ah,
was 3 weeks before graduation day. Right. So I had to not only, and I had straight A's at that point. So I was just kind of coasting. I didn't take the exams. I was kind of going to the beach a little bit. I had to go to class, but there was nothing else to do because I didn't have to take exams because I was good to go. I got kicked out of school. which means I got shadowed for 4 or 5 days. Everybody on campus, as you know, looks when you're walking the floor and you can't say it, they know you're being shadowed. You can't talk to anybody. Got kicked out. They put us in the truck, sent us on our way. I lost my scholarship that I had to pay back. I didn't graduate. We had planned on having our grandparents to come to Florida to vacation for a week. We canceled that, lost hotel reservations, lost all of that stuff. Went home and I was pissed off.
Yeah.
Right. I was supposed to be a college graduate at that point, and I was not.
Right. Right.
Uh, and I mean, I'm telling you, my parents were pissed. Of course, my dad being a pastor, everybody knows what's going on. Everybody in the church was pissed. Not fair, and that's how it was.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that summer. I was working at that point. I was working construction, making $10 an hour, working about almost 80 hours a week. So anything over 40 to 60, you get time and a half, and then anything over that, you get double time. So I was making a lot of money saving up. And I was like, you know what? And I almost could visually see you can either make this better or you can be bitter. It's up to you because
Yeah.
nothing's going to change outside of that. So I decided to make it better. So I wrote a letter to the college. Hey, can I come back and finish my last semester so I can graduate? I'm sorry what I did. I know I broke the rules. Yada yada. They allowed me to come back, and so I went back to school to finish that last semester. As a matter of fact, I double up on some of the classes because I already had the notes, already had everything. I didn't have to. I mean, I just had to go through the semester, take the test, and be out. And I'll never forget that. I got on campus. I was a little. I wanted to be better, but I was like, I ain't talking to nobody. I ain't doing nothing. I was like focused on that. My roommate at that point was a guy named Mitch, and his high school sweetheart was Wendy.
Yeah.
And so Wendy is now my wife. That was the first time I'd ever met Wendy. So, Rich, had I not been kicked out of college, my life would not amount to what it is now.
Right.
And I think that's, sometimes when you have situations that are unfair or that happen to you, you can make that decision. And I think God has, well, I know God has the best in mind. And if we don't take the right path, he'll still get you there. But you may hit the guardrail, you may do something that hurts, but you're eventually going to get there. And so that whole bad experience through college helped me to meet the love of my life, who will celebrate 30 years in just a few months.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. What I find interesting too about that scenario and that mindset is that's that achiever coming out again from
Right.
from the young age, right? You being that achiever, you looking at the situation and being like, okay, I can let this break me, or I can let this be the thing that pushes me forward to excel. And you went back, finished it out, got the degree, and went on from there. So I just wanted to bring that up again because I think those are the types of things that we see or are recognized as kids that don't get amplified. But
Mhm.
yet those are the things that play out through the rest of our timelines.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. So at some point we can choose to be a victim of that. And I have every right to be upset and to carry this on.
yeah,
But to my defense also, I had practice at that because I also got kicked out of high school.
right.
Went on a
Okay.
school, Christian school. We got caught drinking wine coolers. I
Yeah.
got kicked out immediately. I did the same thing, wrote a letter. I'm sorry, came back. Both times, and I've told my kids this, I don't know how many times, both times I went back to the institute that kicked me out, uh, got zero demerits. Demerits or marks or occurrences or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Both times I finished up, didn't get demerits, finished strong. So I had practice at that. So my kids are like, you got kicked out of high school and college? I was like, yeah. I mean, but
Right.
here I am
Yeah, exactly.
filming.
Exactly. Yeah, and we read off the list of accomplishments, so that didn't bother you at all. Didn't bother you at all.
Yeah, well, it was tough, but yeah, you're right.
Once you're finished that up, now I'd assume you're back home in Virginia because you said you've been there ever since pretty much.
Yep.
Um, what is what is it like coming back at that point and having the big wide open world
Uh,
um, on your mind of, all right, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? What's what?
After college, it was weird for me because the original graduation that I had a job set up. I was moving to Richmond. I had a great internship that my grandfather, who was one of my top five heroes in my life, had secured for me. This communications company was going to hire me. But I mean, I had everything ready. I had the car that I was going to pick out. It was a 1992 Nissan Maxima. Now, rewind 22 years ago or
Yeah, yeah.
32.
Yeah,
I
that was a
remember
nice car back then.
that was a sweet ride.
Yeah.
So I already had it picked out. I had everything set. And, God said, I got other plans. I'm going to do this. It's going to suck for a while, but it's going to work out. Trust me. Um, and so when I finally graduated, I had zero prospects. I had nothing to look forward to. But I did want to work with kids. So when I graduated from college, before I started my career, I went to the YMCA and worked at their summer camp all summer.
Okay.
uh, I've invested a lot in kids and teenagers and students, and for some reason, and that's part of my Enneagram personality is coaching and sharing and lifting somebody up to the potential that I feel like they can get to.
Right.
So I spent the summer with kids, and then after I did that, then that's when I started looking for a job. Ended up working a few odds and ends. I worked at this retail outlet called Parisians, which is kind of like
Yep.
a
Yeah.
high end store.
Yeah.
Uh, and I wanted
Almost
to go.
like Macy's.
Right, right.
Yep.
So I wanted to go see Wendy after between Christmas and New Year because he was at home and we were dating at that time. And they said, "Well, you can't because after Christmas is when everybody returns stuff. We need you here." I said, "Well, I can't be here." They said, "Well, you have to be." So I quit my job. Um, I mean, I quit. Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
So I quit my job for her. I ended up coming back and working for the a newspaper, local newspaper. So I did ad design, and because I had darkroom experience from the print shop there at Pensacola, I was the darkroom guy.
Yeah.
So I designed ads and put the layout together. Pay stubs, remember pay stubs? There was
Yep.
no, we had computers in, but it was just to print out tight, so you could paste it up on the board. So I do pay stub, take them in the darkroom, shoot the paper once a week. It went out like that. I did it for about a year and a half, and I was like, man, I got to, I don't want to do this forever. So I ended up finding a graphic design company locally from this lady who just started it up, and we met, and she hired me right on the spot. She said, "This is great. You're very talented," and I worked there for about a year and a half.
Okay.
Uh, and most of the time, I was, getting the work. I was invoicing it. I was doing the work. I was like, "Psh, I do this myself," ready,
Yeah.
fire, aim. So I started doing a little bit of things on the side, and then told her I was done, and I left the company. Started the Addison Group. And that was back in '96.
Okay.
So I'll celebrate 29 years of being that crazy and that stupid to do this for the company. But I didn't have prospects in line. I just sort of navigated and kind of went the direction that was in front of me at that point. Knowing what my talents were and knowing what my education was, I kind of defaulted and navigated towards that end.
Right. Right. And so again, I'm seeing the achiever come out, and the way I'm seeing it too is there's an element that I'm trying to help creative artists and creatives realize, and it's called the pivot. And when I say the pivot, I'm not necessarily meaning um, you just change completely what you're doing, but I want them to be able to realize that if you're in a creative environment and you're doing what you love to do, but it's not fulfilling you, there's always the opportunity to be able to pivot into another space within the creative community.
Right.
Um, and I've seen you do that multiple times throughout your career that we've known each other. Um, so I want to point that out, bring that into the storyline right now. Um, and re-amplify the fact the achiever. Just to give the audience some clarity too, the the Enneagram is basically a personality test, essentially. Created of 9 different personalities, and you can take this test, kind of get a better understanding of who you are, why you operate the way you do, different things that bother you, and realize what those are. Um, and that's one of the things that your wife is doing now, Wendy, is Enneagram coaching.
Yep.
So just for the clarification of that for the audience. Um, but once you started the Addison group,
Right.
um, I'm assuming it was just you. I'm guessing you probably
It
didn't
was.
jump
Yeah.
in and start hiring
No,
anybody right off
I
the
was
bat.
in the spare. We didn't have kids at the time. I was in my spare bedroom. I just started designing work, and this was before web and all that other stuff. So I was designing logos, doing print collateral, direct mail, posters, stationery, you name it, just anything graphic design and print that you can actually tangibly hold was what I did for a long time.
And you're taking that to an actual print company to get those produced. It's not
Yep.
done digitally.
And that's when you put it on a zip drive or you put it on, let's see what else. You had to put it on an actual hard drive and actually take it because you couldn't email it. There was no FTP upload. It was none of that stuff.
Right.
So, just a simple stationery took a lot of effort,
Yeah.
it was gas and time and all that other stuff. So, uh, I did that for probably 4 or 5 years, and I was fortunate enough to get a couple of really good clients right away. One was International Paper, which was called, it was Union Camp at the time, but International Paper was a local firm, and we they hired us to put their newsletter together called The Log, and we did some other print collateral and stuff like that. And then also the Newport News Williamsburg International Airport, which is in Hampton Roads. We have two major airports. One is the Norfolk International, which is the major one, and then the Newport News Williamsburg International Paper Airport. So I did all their ads. I did the creative stuff. They were just like, hey, let's do some creative stuff. So in other words, instead of saying, hey, we have a flight to New York, the headline for my ad would be 90 minutes. I can be here and step into the Big Apple. So I try
Right.
to put a story on everything that people go, yeah, they do that. Well, we did that so well that those clients were like, well, that's cool. Can you help us with our radio or can you help us with our TV spots? I never did that. And so I said, sure, I can. Of course, achiever. Oh yeah, that's no problem. I'd
Right.
get in the, I'd get home because there was no cell phones back then and call a buddy that I know did that and said, hey, I got a client that wants to do it. How do I do that? And so from year 4 to year 7 was when we transitioned to a really full service agency. Same concept, same storytelling, just a different resource to tell it, not just print collateral, but also radio and TV. And you remember Yellow Pages, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All that stuff is what we began to go into. So about 7 years after we had started the company, is when we converted to full service agency.
Nice. Nice. Now, with that as well, is there anything that's going on in the mind at that point in time where you're scared, or are you just in the mindset of I'm just going to say yes to this and figure out how to get it done?
That's it. I've never I've never been really fearful of doing something. I've always taken risk and I've been bitten before. I mean, I've lost money, I've lost deals, I've lost stuff, but I've always been the kind that's like, yeah, let's just figure it out and go get it.
Yeah.
Whatever the idea was, if it sounded good to me and I felt like I could take some steps or lead a team there, I wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I want to highlight that too for the audience because I think that there's a whole lot in the creative world. A lot of times we're perfectionists. We want things to be perfect. We want things to be, you know, just fine-tuned and put out and it'd be fantastic. Um, but there's always that element when it can go wrong
yeah,
or it doesn't work.
yeah.
And
You
the
can actually count on that.
right. The ability to not be afraid to continue or not be afraid of the fact that you did fail or a project failed or didn't work, but yet you still continue on. I want to highlight that as well because I think the creatives and artists and designers and anybody who's in the creative realm, if they can grab a hold of some of that fearlessness, that not being afraid to fail,
Yeah.
because it's going to happen ultimately at some
And not
point.
being afraid to do something that's not just in your job description, but it's close enough to where you're like, all right, yep.
Exactly.
Thank God we pivoted, right? Because who knew
Yep.
that the web was going to come out? Who knew that social media was going to come out
Right. For
and
sure.
all that, and apps and all that other stuff? Who knew? We didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So at this point, um, you're you're working with a couple of outside people. When did you make the decision to start to bring in-house,
Right. That
start
was
hiring?
probably in year 8 or 9 because we were doing so much. And it wasn't that I've got so much work, I need help. It was like if I add staff, kind of if you build it, they will come, so to speak. if I had staff, if I had a copywriter, photographer, videographer, if I had a marketing director and somebody to sort of integrate and be a part of organizing things, man, we can really make some money. We can really do well. And I think totally the wrong motive to do that. Instead of continuing to tell a story, continue to just do what I love to do, I was like, well, let's grow this. And I did it with that ready, fire, aim mentality.
Yeah, yeah. Right on. And are you're married too at this point in time, right? Or have the kids started to come about at this point?
Yeah. So my first was born in 99.
Okay.
This is like early 2000s. So Julie was born in 99. Trey was born in 01. Jack was born in 03. Jude was born in 05.
Yeah.
By the time Jude was born, we had built everything. I had about 15 on staff. '05 was the first kind of in my experience in business was the first economic punch in the gut. So when I had to start to let go of some staff,
Yeah.
and these are my friends,
Yeah.
you know, everybody that's ever worked with me or for me has become. I mean, they've all been in my house. We're a family, and I
Right.
can't another culture that way, especially in a creative standpoint. It needs to be that atmosphere. So that '05 was the first time we got hit. Um, and then of course, '08 came along. That was the second time where I literally lost everything. As a matter of fact, I went and worked as a contractor for a web company to teach their web guys how to make sentence fragments to actually sell their product. So I thought I was done. So I was trying to get a job. I thought
Yeah.
that's it. It's done. And for some reason, it just kind of stayed in a coma and just didn't die.
And yeah, and I got to see a little bit of that firsthand
Mhm.
because in '08, that was uh that was when I was having some difficulty as well in terms of job opportunities and stuff like that. And we had, because of social media coming back around and Facebook popping up, um, we were able to reconnect
Yeah.
um, at that point in time and figure out that we're still in the creative worlds and doing all these
Yeah.
different things.
That's right. Actually,
And,
I think your first line was, "I can't believe you're not in jail."
exactly. I thought for
After all that
sure,
time.
I
Yeah.
thought for sure that was the road, but I was proven wrong. But again, too, it plays into the achiever.
Yeah. The grace of God, man.
Yeah, you took that and moved forward with it and shifted that those sketchy things, smooth, move some of those out of the way and out of the lifestyle.
And just
Uh,
for clarity, I never did anything illegal. I did
right.
some things that were like, yeah, it's probably not the right time and place to do that. Oh yeah, sounds like more fun to me.
No, exactly. And again, too, for the audience clarification, th that thought of me making that statement was just for the simple fact that the environment that we were in high school and in college, it wasn't like we we were told that you could get in trouble for things that you really weren't troublesome things.
We're not wrong. That we're not sin.
They
That's just
weren't they weren't illegal things. They weren't
right.
things that would put you in jail or put you in prison or harm anybody else. They were just rules and regulations. But from my perspective and in my mind at that point in time, being that young, it was like, holy crap, that's going to lead to this, and then these other things.
Right.
Because that's what we were told. But when you get out into life, you realize that that's all bullshit, and it's it's a
Yeah.
lot different in life than it is being stuck in one of those bubbles.
All right.
But yeah, that was wild. But I don't remember if I think you invited me to come down there, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
So yeah, 2008 happened, and we were okay in 2008, but we started to trickle off, and it
Yeah,
wasn't really until 2010-ish that we really started to get hit because the contracts were not being renewed. The economy was not getting better. It was tough then. And that was the first real, because of the housing collapse and people lost their homes and all that other stuff. And it was a tough time. And we had been communicating. And I'm like, dude, come on down here, man, because I'm trying to figure out what to do with this agency.
yeah,
We hadn't really done anything yet. I said, let's just do something, man. We'll figure it out. So that's when you came down for about 2, 3 months.
No, it was, I think it was 5 weeks. I think it
Oh,
ended,
okay.
it probably seemed that way.
Oh, it seemed like a year or two.
Well, again, too, it's because
Uncle Rich.
yeah, you invited me into the house. You had some extra space, and
Yeah.
and at the time I didn't have a whole lot of money, because I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. So you invited me into the house to. You said, hey, just stay here till you get on your feet, and we'll just see what's what, and you can come to the office. And if I got some extra stuff to have you do, you can help out, and we'll go from there. But that's where I really got to know the kids, got to really know the family,
Mhm.
um, got to really experience you as a true friend, versus back in college where we were just um, friends across campus, so to speak.
What?
Exactly. When you yell out my name, there's a few
Right.
times we'd be at Gulf Breeze together or whatever, and I remember one time we were at Gulf Breeze, and we're playing basketball in that one main court, and I was already on the court with some other guys that was I was teamed up with, and there was two other teams that were waiting. I don't even know if you remember this. There were two other teams that were waiting to get on to play against us. And so we beat the team we were playing. Next team comes on, and it was a mixed group of guys, and they were pretty cocky. But I think I remember you, Tony, and John pulling up, and some other guys, and you guys were going to get on next. Um, but we're on the court, we're playing this guys, and I ended up stealing the ball at half court, and the guy that was kind of trailing behind the person that I stole the ball from, he took off back towards the other basket because I was going for a fast break. So I go up and I dunk the ball on this guy, and everybody's going nuts around the whole court. And I'm like, what the heck? Why is everybody cheering? Like, I just don't, that was no big deal to me. I didn't think anything of it. And then they're just going crazy and crazy. And this guy that I just dunked on, he looks dejected completely. He can't even believe just what happened either. And uh, when I came off the court, somebody goes, "Do you know who you just dunked on?" I'm like, "No, who did I dunk?" It's like I didn't understand why you guys are going crazy. He goes, "Dude, that was Roy Jones Jr." I'm like, "Who's Roy Jones Jr.?" They're like, "You never heard of Roy Jones Jr.?" I'm like, "No." Like, dude, he's a champion boxer. And I'm like, "What?" Again, I didn't know who he was at that point in time, and I didn't even think anything of it after the fact.
Nor does it matter.
Right. And then come to find out he's one of the greatest boxers in boxing history. It's like,
Crazy, man.
dang.
That's a
Um,
story.
yeah, that's a story, but just something I threw in there. It brought back a memory of us um, having a friendship in college, but not really being able to connect fully
Right.
until I was there at the house with you, and then started seeing the unraveling even more so of that. Um, of the business, the way the economy was hitting you, and seeing how that's starting to affect your mind. And two, it was affecting my mind even in the same scenario because I'm like, crap, I just traveled all this way. There's opportunities here, trying to make something happen. And I don't know the area, so I'm not even thinking about trying to go outside and figure out some other scenario to be in that area working. And let's talk a little bit about that mindset at that point in time for you. The pressures of that. What was it doing to the mind?
Mm. that was the I've done a lot of I've been involved in a lot of tough situations, kicked out of college, kicked out of high school, been a lot of involved in a lot of tough things. That was the singular most the toughest thing I've ever gone through.
Yeah.
Because as an achiever, I'm like, let's just pick it up, let's go, let's figure it out, let's go. It
Yeah.
wasn't going. In order to run a business, you've got to have income. And so nobody had buyer confidence. It was everybody was pulling things in house. Uh, it literally was unraveling to the point where I couldn't make my mortgage payment,
Yeah.
and ended up, long story short, losing the house that we were at.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other story for another time. But when you have a wife and four kids who depend on you, and you're the provider and the hunter, and you have to say, "I'm sorry, there's nothing. I have to go I'll go cut grass. I'll do whatever it takes to make this happen." Of course,
Yeah.
God just kind of walked through that whole process, and it's amazing where we are today because of that. But again, it was one of those bitter or better things.
Right.
I could really, and I was defeated, man. And I'd spent at that point, I had spent 20 years, almost 20 years,
Yeah.
building a company, having a network, having it was in town. It won awards, Small Business of the Year, Creative Awards. I mean, I knew the talent was there, but the work and the income was not there, because Hampton Roads is not really an ad creative services. I mean, it's not like Boston or New York or
Right.
any Orlando like that. I mean, you have
Yeah.
to make your path. And I literally had everything I had: uh, retirement, savings, real estate, everything that I had built up, completely gone. Everything. So I literally, there's a point in my life as a grown man, married with kids, at zero,
Yeah.
nothing. And we never, and I've told my parents and my in-laws this story, and they're like, "Why didn't you tell us?" I'm like, "I don't know. Probably because I was embarrassed," would be the first guess. And the second way is, I don't like to dump my stuff on somebody else. I'm always a, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
So that was a really a pivotal moment in my life, where my faith took me into a simple form of, if you're not praying, you're worrying. And if you're going to worry, don't pray.
Yeah.
So you can do one or the other, but you
Right.
can't do both. They don't go hand in hand. And I spent I know it was a long time, 8 months to a year, with anxiety issues, worrying, uh, things that I couldn't control, but I would just continue to resonate and live with those things, which now I know that when you give attention to those things, those are the things that are going to be the most prominent in your life.
Yeah.
Instead of, God's got a plan, He's in control, He knows where I am, He knows
Yeah.
what I can do. Let's lean on Him,
Right.
and then continue to do what my talent and what He's allowed me to do. That was a growth period that really hurt. And it took we were able to fall into a place to live, uh and really kind of restructure and rebuild from ground zero. And it took about 6 years to even go, hey, we can buy an extra box of candy at the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, we have four kids, and they were all in private school, and they were, I mean, so Wendy homeschooled for a while. I mean, we did everything. I think Dave Ramsey called it gazelle intensity. We were just like, there's no money, there's no chance, there's nothing. And I
Right.
saw God put things in my life to help us. Friends would give us money out of nowhere. No one knew what I was going through. I didn't
Yeah.
share that. Like Wendy, I shared mostly with her, but I didn't tell her how I felt, or the struggles I was having with anxiety and worry and all that. So I didn't share that with her, because I didn't want to burden her with that extra stuff.
Right.
Uh, that was the longest, toughest period in my life, questioning everything. Like, why am I in Suffolk doing creative services work? This is the wrong place, wrong time. I was dumping it on myself and beating myself up
Right.
for decisions I made and everything.
Yeah. And I saw part of that for sure. But there was a point too where even you had to say to me, you were like, "Hey, man, you're gonna have to go back home because I just I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow."
Yeah.
And that
Well,
even seeing that and understanding it fully, because I'm watching things unravel and unfold, and you're trying to navigate that as well. Um, but understanding that, yeah. there's nothing that I can even do to help him other than, just be his friend at this point. I got to go ahead and go back home and try to figure something out for myself. But yet, you know,
That was also tough for me to sit across the room from a dear friend,
yeah,
knowing fully well what was going to happen, but not wanting to share. I mean, I already knew what was going to happen. I
yeah,
knew that's the reason I said, man, you probably got to go home because I knew we were going to have a house.
yeah,
I knew what was happening. I'd already gotten the letter, already gotten the date. I was just like, I can't, I can't drag him through this also. So in the best way I knew how. Again, I had no practice at this. I mean, there's
right.
no classes in college that says, hey, when life sucks, here's what you do. There's
Exactly.
none of that. So
Exactly.
everything is navigated on my faith and what made sense to me at the time. And, I'm not just here. We're not just college buddies. I mean, I got a wife and 4 kids.
Exactly.
I got a company. I'm
Yep.
involved in a community. I mean, I had a lot of stuff on me where I've probably more expectations on me than I should have because I have these things and I'm a pillar of the community.
Yeah.
And I just ran for mayor 3 years
Yeah.
prior.
Yeah.
You know, I'm supposed to have my act together and it ain't together. So now what do I do? And
Right.
I mean, I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it, what I'd like for you to do too is you did end up losing the house scenario. But I'd like if you don't mind, and you don't have to get super detailed with it, but I want you to tell the story of how your faith played into that scenario of where you ended up with a place to live, and the the way that you that came about.
Right. It's a it's really a great story and it involved cursing
Yep.
uh at God himself.
Yeah.
And I look back, I felt really bad, like I was going to hell because you don't talk to God that way. But what I found is that when we open, God knows who we are. When we open up and share with God our true feelings, I think he's probably like I would be with my kids. Like, finally, you get it. You're being real with me. I'm not a figure. I'm not a statue. I'm not something you just worship and not, you're connecting with me. And we had a scenario. My uncle, who was very successful, had a house here in Suffolk, and he'd been trying to sell this to us for a long time. Well, this house is not a house I would buy. It was on 10 acres on the water. He showed me the appraisal for it, and it appraised at $1.2 million. Keeping in mind, I'm losing my house. I'm doing all this stuff. He said, "Man, I really like to keep it in the family." And I'm like, "That Reg, that's nice, but I can't do that." He said, I'm gonna give you a good deal. I'm gonna sell it to you for 800,000. And I was like, "Yeah, that's really nice, but Reg, I can't." And I was just telling him, I got kids. I was kind of blowing off on that.
Yeah.
And I said, the best thing for you probably is just sell it, so because he had 4 or 5 houses. He was getting to where he's going to go to one place, retire, and do all this stuff, and get stuff off his books. Well, we were struggling with that the whole time, and about I don't know, about 30 days before the note was August the 31st that the bank said you got to be out of the house,
Mm.
right? Because they put the sticker on the front of the door, which was embarrassing. I'm in my neighborhood. I got the
Yeah.
sticker on from my bank. They're
Yeah.
taking a house August 31st. And this is the first week in August. And he finally called me. He said, "Hey, listen, man, I've thought about this. And I really want to keep it in the family." He says, "What do you owe on your house now?" And I told him, I didn't tell him about all the losing all that stuff. I just told him what we owed on it, which was more than half of what he said he would sell it to me on a deal for, right?
Yeah.
And we were actually going to Bible study that night. Wendy's and kids are in the car, and he's on speakerphone, and I had this conversation. And he goes, what if I sold it to you for exactly what you owe on your house now?" And I was like, "That's the deal." But then I'm thinking, well, I can't do that because I'm business is nothing. I'm getting ready to pay. He's making me this great deal and I can't touch it.
Yeah.
And so I looked at Wendy and she's like, "Oh my gosh, if we could do that, but we can't." And I said, "Well, Reg," and then I was transparent with him. I said, "Here's what's happening. And I would really like to, but I'm in trouble with the bank. I'm in trouble with this." And almost without thinking about or hesitating. He said, well, let me just hold the loan for you. You can pay me one under prime, interest only for 3 years until you get on your feet. Before that, and you have to understand, if you're buying a house, you're at two and a half over prime, plus the mortgage, plus personal prop, plus all this other stuff.
Yeah.
He told me he would do this, which amounted to about $600 a month for
Yeah.
this house that was worth $1.2 million. And I'm going, this is unreal. Can I talk with Wendy about it? So we cried a little bit and we're like, I feel like the Lord has just given this to me. But rewind about 2 weeks earlier, we were at the house because we wanted to live there. And we're like, God, this is available. Why can't you work things out? And I went to the end of the pier and just, God, what the hell, man? What did you forget? I mean, I just really, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know it wasn't, I know it wasn't G rated to the top of my lungs. This is anxiety and worry and fear all coming out at one time. And so 2 weeks later, he pitched this and said he would do it. What he didn't know the situation, but he quickly agreed, hey, let me help you out. For the next 3 years, you'll do this and set it up for us. And so we started the process with no money.
Yeah.
With nothing. And we're just like, well, let's just, let's just see what happens. Let's just go in and
Right.
see what happens.
Yeah.
We ended up being able to, I had sold a partnership and something else I had. So I had a little bit of money. And it was just enough to make a deposit and to have an agreement that we worked with his attorney. So there was no real estate involved. Um, and he said, okay, we'll do it. So in the meantime, it's August the 31st coming up, and we're still working out the paperwork. So I remember sharing with my Sunday school class, hey, we got to move out of this house, and I need this weekend. Anyway, they said, hey, do you need some help? I said, well, I mean, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. So I'm packing up boxes. They ended up skipping church on Sunday, and every single person in it must have been 40 or so people in that small group that came and helped us pack out, move up. We moved everything into this barn that's on the property without even, we hadn't signed anything yet. We're just hoping that
Yeah.
things go well. I'll even call. I say, Red, do you mind if I just use the storage and put some things in there? He said, sure, that'd be no problem. So we lived in that house that you were at in downtown Suffolk from August the 31st to September 11th with not a thing in there. There was no beds. We had our clothes and like overnight bag in case the bank came and locked the house.
Right.
That stuff that they would lock up, we didn't really care about that. It emptied the house. So the kids thought we were camping. They thought it was great.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I just like, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, finally, September the 8th, 2011, we were able to close and we moved in. We moved to the house with nothing and just a kind of a fresh start, not really knowing how we were going to maintain, not knowing how we were at that point, we were going to food bank for food. We were doing everything we could to scrape by as a family of six.
Yeah.
And I watched God from that time forward after I was transparent and vulnerable and honest with him. It was almost like he said, do you mind if I take over now? Are you done trying to do it yourself? Let me handle this. I got it. Trust me. I got it. And
Right.
I didn't hear it audibly because that would be weird. Actually, it'd be very scary. If you heard the voice of God going, hey, Tom, I'd be like, I'd run. But I felt within my own heart and with my faith that that's the direction we went. And then from there, just remained gazelle intense, uh, finally getting things done, finally able to pay monthly bills, finally able to catch up. And to this point, fast forward, we've been there 13 years now. I have no debt. We've been able to add to the house and do some things. That barn that I told you we fixed up, and we're trying to have some income on it as a Verbo.
Yeah.
We've done some weddings there. We've done some things to be able to create some income. Uh, but it's nothing that I planned. I didn't
Right.
have any of that planned at all in 2008, 9, 10, when things were starting to happen. Uh, and it's just I think it's a testimony and a tribute to uh, God knowing exactly who you are and what you can do, and then you just sort of letting go of the reins.
Right.
Now, here's what I want to do. I will follow and I will listen and I will not try to take things into my own hands because I've done that before and I've screwed it up. So that's been something that's grown my faith over the years. And don't get me wrong, I still struggle. Oh my God, I got to
Sure.
build it. Well, what am I going to do? And he taps me on the shoulder and goes, you remember I did the other thing, right? So it's been really a humbling, and that's not my personality. My personality is let's go and let's get it done. Let's figure out how to do it. It's been a process. This didn't happen. It's been a process of uh, letting the outcomes go and just do what God's uh, designed me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I wanted the listeners to hear that because I think it's such a powerful story. Um, and I've heard it before, but I wanted them to hear it. And again, I want to point out the achiever who's still willing to keep moving forward, even when the anxiety, the stress, um,
Ooh,
the yeah, not even the component of you by yourself having to deal with this, but you've got a wife and four kids
right.
and having to deal with this. But that achiever is still moving forward, still trying to make things happen, still trying to create something. Um, and also, too, for those who, uh, you know, may feel lost and feel that, faith has left them and they don't have faith, or um, I want this to be an example for them of somebody who really truly believes in the faith and the relationship there. Um, I just want them to be able to see an example.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's good. And the other point, and there's two things, man. There's not a day still, Rich, that I don't wake up and go downstairs and have some quiet time with the Lord that I don't say, oh, thank you. I appreciate you letting me manage this property
yeah,
for you and help me manage the company that I feel like you've given to me. And I think a lot of times, and the second thing is that a lot of times uh, people think faith is something that a church is directly connected with. Now,
right,
church is great. I go to church. I love it. The Bible says don't forsake assembling together because we should encourage each other and hold each other up and stuff. But I think a lot of times people have been hurt and burnt out and
yeah,
just crashed and thrown away because of a church scenario.
right,
That's not the God that I have faith in. The God that I have faith in is a loving Abba Father who I'm a father, so I understand I would do anything for my children. Anything. I want the best for them. If we can understand God in that light instead of I have to go to a church to have access to a God that can help me in life. I think that's a falsehood that people lean on. So then they if because of that they they get really anxious. They start to worry. There's no hope, and I can't imagine living life without a hope of a great creator that wants the best for you and that
right.
loves you unconditionally.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the again, like I said, that's the elements that I want the listeners to be able to see within your story, um, is that creator that you're looking up to, you're looking for guidance from, um, and also being connected to him as a creator.
Mhm.
As a creator, your whole career,
Right.
you've been a creator, whether it's doing something on your own or you're doing it for somebody else. You've been a creator, so that connection for you has a whole lot different meanings than what it may for somebody else. But I want that to be an example and a story that they can hear and connect to, and I believe they will. Um, moving forward, um, you you got yourself tied into doing some things with the veterans at Old Dominion.
Yeah.
Um, Let me know how that came about and um, what moved you in that direction to do that. Now, for the audience, Suffolk is next to Norfolk,
Yeah.
which is where the naval base
Yep.
is.
We are a military community.
Yeah,
Completely. I mean, every 4 years, 25% of the population goes to wherever else they go,
right.
serving. So I've always been in and around that. and I was actually invited by the Veterans Outreach Business Center, which is an entrepreneurial school of Old Dominion University, to come and teach about marketing. And I said, well, tell me a little bit about what VBOC does. And he says, well, for veterans who retire or leave the military, we want to equip them if they want to start a business or be an entrepreneur or do some things. I said, that's great, man. Count me in. What do I need to do? So they have these seminars and classes there that veterans can sign up for at no charge to learn about legal and accounting and banking and finance and marketing and retail and all the stuff that they need to be equipped for run a business. Which I'm thinking, man, I wish I could have had that when I started my business on a ready, fire, aim
Right.
scenario. It would have been
Right.
nice to know what's going on. What do you mean payroll taxes?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. That would have been nice. So back in 2016, I started teaching my first class, and we've just been invited back ever since. And when I partnered with Brian Forrester, I said, hey, I've got my business partner that we tag team teach all the time. Um, so we began to do that, and we've been doing that since 16. So 8 years or so,
Hey,
we've
yeah.
been doing that. And William and Mary also, who has a college here, one of the oldest colleges. I think it's where Thomas Jefferson went to school
Yeah. Yeah.
before he started at the University of Virginia.
All right.
They invited us to come up to. They have an entrepreneurial school as a part of their Mason School of Business that we are invited to teach young students and for those in the entrepreneurial world who want to start a business. So it's been a gift to do that, but it's also been something that with my experience now I can teach hard knocks. I mean, 30 years ago I couldn't teach how to do things because I had no experience, but now I've been through a lot.
Yeah.
And these are things that I can share from experience. I tell people, ask me, well, where's your education? I said, well, I got my bachelor's at Pensacola Christian College, but I got two doctorate degrees in the School of Hard Knocks. And they go, okay, that's great. What are you talking about? I go, yeah, it was expensive and it hurt and it was hard, but I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, so I've been able to pour into that to the point where, that's really where I want to focus my creative now is teaching those who are up and coming how to address this new world of chat GTP, AI, Canva, all the what we call in our world kind of fake stuff
Right.
to really begin to do real marketing, which I define marketing as, bringing someone into your story.
Yep.
So if you can have that same storytelling type atmosphere, no matter what business you have, it's all scalable, doesn't matter. Understanding who you're talking to, what personality are we talking with to be able to connect directly to who you can sell your service or product to. I would have never known this had I not walked through all of the other garbage,
Right.
uh, trying to start a business, run a business, be creative, do things. That's really what I'd love to do. If I could just quit everything else and just teach and invest in people who are hungry and want to learn, I would do that every
Yeah.
day.
That's beautiful and that's amazing too. And it's interesting to me because over the course of the years I've always been um kind of proponent of um veterans mental health
Yeah.
because I uh understand what mental health difficulty is like, gone through the scenario of attempted suicide and trying to figure out how to live after the fact. Um, but I know that the veteran community is the numbers are at a staggering rate right now in terms of loss of life because of feeling that they don't have options. And I think that's a disappointing point of what the community after the fact has not provided for veterans. And I applaud you in what you're doing because you're giving a different perspective of what they can do with their disciplined life that they're used to, and how to transfer that into being their own bosses and being their own creator of their own career, kind of a
Right.
thing.
You're right. Yeah. And the stories that I've heard from those scenarios are amazing also. I mean, we don't
Yeah,
start a class. So let me first of all thank you I can imagine what you've been through. I mean, I can because I've got family members who have Afghanistan that can't talk about, when they're the guy next to him, the best friend, was blown away in a firestorm. I can't imagine
Yeah.
what they've been through. So if I can offer just a little bit of, yeah, this is cool, then I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think that's exactly what you're doing, is offering that little bit of cool because I think the creative elements are some of the things that help them get through the war, get through battles, get through training. Because I mean, they're listening to the music that's, getting them pumped up, getting them ready to go. They're, you know, creating nicknames for the vehicles and painting them, and that in and of itself has its own history in the creative world. Is the artwork that was put on the fighter pilots' planes over the course of the years, giving themselves call signs and nicknames and all that kind of stuff. That's a creative element that helps them get through those experiences and those times, and that they remember those things and they're proud of those things. And it's uh, it's just I'm just glad that there's opportunities out there. It's just a matter of getting the word out a little bit more, and I hope this does that to let them know that there's resources available
That's
um,
right.
to help you figure out what to do next, kind of a thing. And again, applaud you for that.
Oh, thanks, man.
And one of the things that I wanted to bring out was that the artist recovery is it's about multiple things. Um, some might hear the word recovery and think that it's about addiction and different things like that, and that is one element of that the idea and concept of the artist recovery. But the word recovery has um, multiple aspects of its definition, and one of those is recovering after failure or a downtime. And um, your story literally shows that as being something that can happen, that does happen. The creative career can still continue on. You can still continue doing what you love to do creatively, even if you aren't putting a pencil to a piece of paper. The different things that you've done over the years, writing the book, um, writing the songs that you've done. We didn't even really get into those types of things, but you've delved into those creative genres, and the fact that there is hope out there for creatives, artists that are struggling, that it is possible to bounce back and to bounce back even better and stronger and that type of thing. And if you had something to say as kind of like a final closing statement of, what kind of encouragement would you give to artists to just continue?
That's a great question. First time anyone has asked me that question. So I'll stumble through this,
All
but
right.
it's something that I've even put together from other scenarios. You mentioned books and songs and stuff like that. During that time that lost house, lost that stuff, I still had that creative energy and I wanted to have an outlet somewhere. And since I didn't have clients that I was doing deadlines and ads with, I wanted to do some things that were on my wish list. Remember, I wanted to be Bon Jovi, right, in college. And of course, the whole opera thing, bounced that. But I've always loved music and I've always loved, I've sung, I've done some stuff. And so I was able to write some music, which are stories. I've written a song called Rearview Mirror, which is really from a dad's perspective, looking in the rearview mirror as he drives and watching his kids grow up in the back seat.
Yeah.
All the stories, all the games, all the rescue pets, all the things that happen through a dad's life to be able to watch his kids grow up and be successful. Another song I wrote was for Julia. It's called "Will You Go Out with Me." One of the things I did with her was when she was 18 months old. I decided I'm going to be the man who shows her what a real man is when she begins to date. So I'll never forget. I held her hand. We grabbed some popcorn and some candy and went to see Monsters Inc. in the theater for the first time.
Yeah.
Well, it was a scenario where, that leads to one day I got to walk her down the aisle. And that moment that the dad stands behind the door before it's open, before the bride is introduced, I often thought, what the heck is going on through that man's mind at
Right.
that moment? Not all the preliminaries and all this stuff, but what is he thinking about right then? So I wrote my story about that and then some other things, but it wasn't to publish or, I mean, if somebody wants to pick it up and sing it, that's awesome. But it was really just because I wanted to do it and because I wanted to say, yes, I did that. The book I wrote was The Prodigal Son in the Bible is my favorite story, not because of the redemption of the son and coming back from having struggles and all that other stuff,
Right.
but again, the unconditional love of the dad who, even though he was gone such a long time, he was still looking every day for him to come. Is it going to be today? So I wrote The Prodigal Son as if it happened today. You know, the prodigal son didn't hang out in a pigsty and eat pig slop. What did he do today that I can relate with? So I was able to do that. And as a matter of fact, I've got an editor who thinks it's something that she's got it now and it may publish. But again, that's not what I did it for. It'd be cool, but I wanted to do it during that time of my darkest area to do that, the
Yeah.
darkest time of my life to do something to stay creative. So if there's some advice I would give to any creatives out there, is that the struggles that you face are really the table of contents to the end of the story that you're going through. If you never had, Rich, if you never had any struggles, you were a designer, you went all the way through life and hung it up, would you have been as stretched and as effective and influential as you are if you had uh, accidents against a guardrail, fell down the ditch, skint your knee, lost everything you had? What does the story look like at the end of that book as opposed to if everything just went well?
Yeah.
And I think we all get handed raw deals, things that are not fair, that we think are not fair. But I think based upon my own life and my own faith that those are instances where God says, I want to do something a little bit more special that you don't have in mind, but I know. So I'm going to put you through this. Just trust me. And if it would be one thing is just don't quit. There's a reason for everything. And there's another story that could be told as a result of something that you struggle with.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That is the thing. For them to keep in mind that there's more to the story, more to the
Yeah.
story that can come out, that can be played out, that can allow them to keep moving forward. Um,
Which I'm stealing that, by the way, and trademark it. There's more to the story,
yeah, exactly.
which
That's
would be what I put on my gravestone.
Go ahead, man. Take it. Take it.
There's
I give
more
it
to the
to you
story.
freely.
Copyright, Rich Wright, artist.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, listen, I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you coming on, taking the time.
Oh man, it's a
Love you
treat.
like a brother.
Oh, same. Love you like a brother, man. I appreciate what you're doing for the artist community, how you've been vulnerable and transparent, even with your own journey, to be able to share and help others. That's awesome. That's awesome, Rich.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And audience, always remember, be kind to your mind.
Mm.
See you next time.